Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our Plant of the Week podcast, brought to you by Bonide Products, family made in America. Visit Bonide.com to find a retailer near you. Each week, Plant Talk Radio's Fred Hauer focuses on a plant that would be a great addition to your landscape. Now for this week's Bonide Products Plant of the Week. Fred, your plants of the week.
Well, it is plants, Mark, and there are, even though the list is going down in total numbers, two things have come along quite nicely. One is the witch hazel. Now, it is just almost exactly where it should be, even though we've had the hot and let's just say drought and so on. The witch hazel, the fall blooming witch hazel, has just started blooming. This being the 7th, my birthday being the 10th, it is supposed to be in bloom on the 10th, and it's going to make it for sure. Not an outstanding plant in terms of a blaze of yellows, well, different kinds of yellows, because there are several varieties. But it is a plant that will be attractive if you're within 50 feet of it. And the only detraction is that the flowers are very close to the yellow color of the leaves in the fall. So when you get close, though, you see what looks like a very spidery flower. The petals are long and thin, rather interesting. When you glance up out of the corner of your eye, if you're not paying attention, you would think there's a spider dangling there. But there are hundreds of flowers on the plant right now. They're just starting out, and I can't call it a blaze of color, but it is very pleasant in the afternoon, at least in my setting, in the afternoon with the sun coming, let's just say, on into the west as it goes. The witch hazel is the foreground for a blue spruce, and it's kind of a nice combination. The blue spruce is becoming a little ill with its maladies, but at the same time, the witch hazel is doing its thing, has been for years, and I love it. Then, one that has sustained itself, and I have to say itself, because all I ever did was give it a decent burial, planting, I should say, and it's growing on as it does. The flowers, again, are not overwhelmingly spectacular at a great distance, but the flower clusters are, 3 inches, 3.5 or so inches across. They're a bright yellow fading into red, or the two parts are the red and yellow, and they're coming on quite strong yet at this point.
And that plant's name is?
Yeah, it's best that I mention that. Swamp milkweed has stayed with us. It's a new plant to me. I've never had it in my yard before, and right now having wonderful luck with it because it started blooming, 2 or more months ago, and it still has flower clusters on it. Not a shocker at 30 miles an hour going by, but at the same time, quite pleasant when you're up close to it. It draws all kinds of little insects. I've seen hummingbirds try it, but they don't seem to find much joy in it. And by the way, as far as hummingbirds are concerned, I saw my last hummingbird, my last
of course
on the 27th of September, and I kept the feeders up and filled, and I assume little creatures have headed south. It's always kind of a loss in a way because they're so darn cute, but hopefully they got fattened up enough to make the trip way, way, way south, and then we'll be back in the spring, males coming first, and then the ladies, and then the babies, and we recycle the hummingbirds.
Now back to the swamp
Yes.
milkweed. Is it aptly named? Do they
Yes.
like it wet or?
Yes. Yeah, wet, Mark, is, let's just say, very moist. It won't stand in water, to my knowledge. Where I have it is a spot that, it doesn't get excessive water by any means. But at the same time, when it does rain, the way my yard is graded, the water, the excess water moves down, and in a very broad but very shallow area, we'll call it a slight depression, it goes off in that direction. And the milkweed, every time it rains of any significance, and of course earlier this summer it was quite significant, it would get not wet feet because it does not stand in the water, but it can stand just barely above the water in a stream or in most any reasonable soil in an area that stays on the moist side. Some plants you have to plant more or less high and dry or the roots rot. This guy kind of likes it on the moist side. Yeah.
So does it grow tall like a bush? Or
yes, Mark, it is. It's right now, my shirt pocket height, which is roughly 4.5 feet, maybe just a little shorter than that, because I'm still even at my height, I'm looking down into the flower just a little bit. But it is a plant that you'd have to have several of to make a good display. Now, I suppose, since this is new to me and it has only 2 stems this year, I suppose it will divide up and get more stems in it next year. But it still is going to be more showy, let's just say if there are 3 plants at maybe 2-foot spacing, so that there's a collection of the flowers. Right now, it's kind of on the tall and thin side, but that's okay as long as those flowers stay as bright as they are.
Thanks again for listening to our podcast, brought to you by Bonide Products at bonide.com. Plant Talk Radio offers other podcasts as well, including our daily Your Gardening Question podcast and our weekly Plant Talk Radio, all available on iTunes or your preferred podcast player. If you have a plant suggestion for Fred, send him an email, fred@planttalkradio.com.